Mike Catherwood was saying how it's such a bummer that there's no, Kevin and Bean, all that's getting canceled. And he's talking about how you got your start with Jimmy Kimmel was on there, and you were helping him get ready for some like boxing competition. Is that right?
Yeah,
and then they would bring you in. And they'd be like, "Dude, this guy's hilarious and smart as fuck. Why isn't he doing this? Why are we doing this?"
It should be, I don't know, something for the kids listening. I was like, I wasn't a highly motivated guy. I was kind of a fuck up. I was a bad student. I didn't go to college. I hung around with sort of fuck ups from the valley. We clean carpets and work construction and stuff like that. And I was like, the whole story is kind of interesting in that I gave myself this timeline. I was like, by the time you're 30, you got to be doing something, like something. I wasn't thinking about famous TV,
How
syndicated
old were you
radio.
when you made that?
I was like 21 or 22.
Give yourself a lot of time.
I did. I did. That's the first thing I did. By the time you're 90.
40.
That's fucking patience.
Yeah.
By the time you get to Clint Eastwood's current age, you, my friend. No, I was like, I did. I did. Like,
Good for you.
I was totally realistic about it. Like, I was like 21, living with these, 3 dudes in a 1-bedroom in North Hollywood, no air, crappy apartment. Everyone just worked construction, drove a pickup truck, nothing. Like, drinking Schaefer beer on the weekends and ripping bong loads and trying to get laid and everything. No insurance, no parents had no money, no nothing. I didn't have car insurance. I didn't have anything. And I was like sitting around like watching all these idiots get high all day and sort of just working for the weekend, get your paycheck, $9 an hour, go out to the lake or whatever. And I was like 21 or 22 and I was like, how's this going to end? Like, how are you ever going to get a house? I love cars. I drive a pickup truck. I have to drive a pickup truck for my job. I can't afford a second car. I don't even have insurance on my pickup truck. How could I drive a cool car and with this lifestyle? So I was just like, sitting in my apartment in North Hollywood, and I was like, well, what else could you do? What's a way you could make money? And I thought, one way would be more of what I'm doing, like get a contractor's license, work more hours, get $15 an hour, And the other thought was like, well, what else are you good at? Like, what could you do? And I was a shit student. So I knew, you're not going to be an attorney or a doctor or work in this capacity or that capacity. I really couldn't like fill out paperwork and work in a corporate world. I was like, well, you're funny. You got a sense of humor. That's it. That's all. All we know about you is you're good with your hands and then you're funny. And I don't know what funny means. I don't know what to do with funny, but at least you have that. So I was like, all right, you now have 9 years. Until you're 30. Until you're 30. Well, I figured out, like, I was like, when you're 20, you can do whatever you want. Like, you're not a loser.
No.
If you meet a guy and he doesn't own a home,
23,
or he doesn't have a second car, his career's not taking off, and he's like in his 20s, you're like, eh. But when it starts with a 3, now it's time. And by the way, that was the old 30. Now, guys are 50 and they're fucking finding themselves on the beach, It's like, I got a t-shirt company I was thinking about. Okay, 50-something. You have a great pube, dude. Maybe you should, multi-piercings on the right ear, a lot of hoops. You drive an F1?
Dude,
so
whenever anybody who's in their 40s and 50s gets their first tattoo, I'm always like,
It's a bummer.
hey, bro, it's over.
So I'm like sitting there and going, okay, by the time you're 30, something. And it wasn't
such a general goal.
Well,
like Tony Robbins would be like, we got to stop, let's get more specific.
Well, at that time, it's like the floor collapsed of an outhouse and I'm up to my neck in shit. And I'm thinking to myself, how do I get out of this and hose myself off? Yeah. I'm not thinking about surf and turf and a martini. I'm like, I got to just get to fucking terra firma and find a garden hose. So it's like, that was my mindset. Like, I need a paycheck. I want to get paid for Christmas Day. You know what I mean? Like in construction, there's no payment, whatever, Christmas, holidays. You roll your ankle playing hoop on a Sunday, you don't come in Monday, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
That I was like, some job, maybe a little security, a business card. Like maybe I could write jokes for like greeting card company. I could make funny cards, or I could be part of someone else's project and write jokes for them, or some, just, or whatever works. But it wasn't about being in front of the camera or on stage or anything. But I didn't rule that out. I was just like, whatever. So I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And I found a friend of mine whose parents, who were like kind of in the industry a little. And I said, what should I do? Where should I go? And they said, there's a place called The Groundlings, and it's on like Melrose, and you could go sign up for classes. And I was like, okay. And I just went, it was $350 for, 10 classes.
Yep.
I didn't have car insurance, but I was like, fuck it. I'll go do that. And I did that. And everyone in the class was like smart, and they went to college, and they had this big vocabulary, and they all kind of like, the teacher would go, all right, move up stage, and I'd start walking to the left, no, not stage left, stage right. And
They're
I'd be
all
like,
theater majors.
Yeah, what stage? I like just start following everyone around and not turning my back like Jim Morrison to the audience and stuff. And eventually, did a bunch of open mics, did a ton of things. Eventually, I was kind of ready, but I still had nothing. Oh, we're looking at. No, that's not me in The Groundlings. Let's see.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's there is some probably old pictures of me from back in those days, improv troops and stuff like that. I started the Acme Theater and blah, blah.
You started the Acme?
Well, it wasn't called the Acme, and I ended up building the Acme Theater.
Wow.
And everything else. But anyway, so I'm a few weeks away from my 30th birthday, and I realize nothing has worked out. Like I'm no closer to a job. I got nothing. It's not worked out. Like the dream hasn't worked out. But I do have a job as a boxing coach at God, what was it called? Bodies in Motion in Pasadena.
Terrible name.
I know. They had me, I built the gym. I built it out. Like it was already built as a structure. I just kind of hung the heavy bags and shit. And then the guy who worked there said, you can teach class, $20 a class, right? So I was working there, and I would teach the morning class, and then I would go work as a carpenter. And I was like, I don't know, a month away from turning 30. And I was teaching boxing. I was still working as a carpenter. And the whole comedy thing just evidently never worked out. I had all this training, but I still wasn't getting paid, and I had nothing to do. And so I was driving my truck over Laurel Canyon with my entertainment unit in the back of it. I was built somebody back when he'd have the big TV and the pull-out drawers with the VHS rack and everything. And I hear Jimmy Kimmel, who's Jimmy the sports guy on Kevin and Bean, and he's doing the sports, and he gets into an argument, like impromptu, with Michael the maintenance man, who's part of the morning zoo.
True, yeah.
And they challenge each other to a boxing match. And I've listened to K-Rock my whole life because I grew up in Los Angeles, and Loveline and everything else. And I don't know where the station is. I've never met anybody. I don't know anything. Like radio's a weird enigma, And they're going, all right, well, we're having a boxing match, and we need trainers, and we need equipment, and we need gyms. If you're listening right now, and I'm like driving my truck going, I could train one of those guys to box. And
you'd been boxing at this point?
I had been boxing I did the Golden Gloves when I was 19. And then I'd stuck with it for probably 10 years at that point. And I was working as a trainer at a place that was like, executive boxing, like fitness, but just secretaries and airline pilots and shit. But I was a little more hardcore. So like my class was a little more like box. Like we had like Mike Weaver worked there, and the Weaver triplets worked there. And Mike Weaver's like you want to talk about a physique. Show me Mike Weaver. This guy, you want to talk about a brick shithouse of a heavyweight from circa, 1982 or something.
Holy fuck.
This guy ain't juicing. I mean, I knew Mike Weaver when he
Holy
was. I knew Mike Weaver when he was 45. He was a
Still
Good God.
jacked.
Wow.
That's not steroids, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
That's
he's.
fucking-
You want to talk about just. You want to talk about
He is
an incredible physique, nice guy. Weaver taught that. I mean, look at that guy's build from like 1978. You know,
nuts.
nuts. So
So you had some cred in boxing, so you just called the station out of the blue?
I get over the hill.
This is such a crazy
And the Weaver triplets are Floyd, Lloyd, and Troy, who were the fighting triplets who were Weaver's half kid brothers or whatever, heavyweights. They got a lot of half kin out there.
Yeah.
So I went over the
half-kin.
Half kin. Those guys all worked at the fighting triplets.
Fucking get the fuck out of here. Those are the triplets. I didn't
Those are
know
the
about
fighting
these guys.
triplets.
They
They
all
all
R&B band.
they all worked.
Oh my
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah, they all worked at Bodies in Motion with me. It's a little homoerotic, a little bit. But
They're good-looking dudes.
good-looking dude.
But they've got that soft look.
oiled
They'll punch the fuck out of you, but they're also like, they're bodied up.
I've seen many pornos like this.
As have I. That looks like you
might be
wandered,
something I'd
you
click on.
wandered into the wrong
I would
gym.
definitely click on that. Keep going.
Hot guy.
Well, I mean, the owner of the gym hated me because Mike Weaver's like an ex-heavyweight champ, and he's got a bunch of secretaries. So he'd just be walking by like, punch high, punch low, punch high. It was like
Yeah, he's not
everyone
into
standing
it. Yeah.
squared off, just now punch low. And I'm like, oh, what are we doing here? Like, we need to teach people how to box. And he's like, no one wants to learn how to box. They want to burn calories.
They wanna work out.
I got the 5 dudes who wanted to learn to box, not the hot secretaries to punch high and the punch low. But anyway, I get over the hill. I get to my client's house, pre-cell phone, and I like come in and like, could I use your phone? And it's like, yeah. And I call Kevin and Bean. I leave a message. I got nothing. I keep calling and leaving messages. No one calls back. I can't get anything. The next day, it's like, oh, we need trainers. And they're getting them on the air.
Yeah, you're like,
hey,
what
man,
the
I'm
hell?
a trainer. Oh, yeah, where are you out of? What are your qualifications? I'm like, they're going to get this dude to train. Again, Jimmy'd only been there like 2 months. And he was doing Jimmy the sports guy. I didn't know who he was. But Michael the maintenance man been there like 4 years. So I was like, I want to train the maintenance man. But it didn't matter. And eventually, they wouldn't return my call.
I
Eventually,
love how your goals were so fucking modest.
I didn't have any
I
goal.
just want to train the maintenance man.
I want to see inside the studio. That's my goal. I want to see inside the studio. So, but it's like a calling to me. So
It's interesting. Yeah.
I go, fuck it. I'm going down there. I find out where the building is. It's in Burbank. It's a commercial building in Burbank. And I go down there and I'm teaching a 6:30 a.m. class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever it is. So I go down there at like 6 or 5:30 and the whole building's locked up. Like you can't get in the building. And then some guy goes, building opens at 7. And I go, oh, okay, I'll come back tomorrow at 7. And I go back, I get a guy to cover the second half of my class. Like I teach the first half and I run back to Burbank. And the building's open and I get into the building. It's like a commercial building. And I go up to the 9th floor where K-Rock is, but the suite is closed. K-Rock is like, their business hours are like 9 to 5. Like they go, when you pick up your prize, you got to come after 9 o'clock. I know Kevin and Bean are in the corner somewhere. They're in their studio, but there's no receptionist. The doors are locked. So now I'm like standing out by the elevators, like going, what do I do? They don't open for 2 hours. I got to like go back and finish my class. I don't know what to do. And like as I'm pacing around the elevators trying to figure out, like, do I go home? A guy comes out of the elevator. He has like a key card and you see him going around like the back, like to where the service entrance or the key card, he's going to refill the vending machine or drop off something or whatever. And I'm just like, I go with him down the hall. I go, are you going in? You going into K-Rock? He's like, yeah, I got to whatever. And I go, oh, okay. Just tell him there's a boxing guy's come down here, a trainer. I got a trainer. I'm going to be by the elevators. I'll just wait here, but tell him to come out. And I don't know if they're on a break or commercial break or who's in there, what. I just sit by the elevator. And like 15 minutes later, Jimmy just comes around, just comes down the hall, just comes walking down the hall. And he just goes, hey, you the boxing guy? And I go, yeah, I'm the boxing trainer. And he goes, okay. And I go, okay. And he goes, all right. And I go, you want me to be your boxing coach? And he's like, okay. And I go, okay, when do you want to start? And he goes, today? And I go, okay, let's start today. And he goes, okay, well, I got to go back in, like, and finish the job. I go,
the hell?
Destiny, dude.
And he goes, how about, I go, when can you meet me? He said, noon. I go, okay, noon, Bodies in Motion, Pasadena. I'll be like at the parking structure across the street. I give him the address. He goes, okay, see you then. And just goes back in the building. I go back in my truck, drive back, Then I'm just standing out there at, 12, and Jimmy comes pulling up, beat to shit RX-7. I'm like, well, this is show business? Like, it was, I had Bondo all over it, Parks his truck, parks his RX-7, and I go, okay. And we go down to Bodies in Motion. We train for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, you want to get a Snapple? And he's like, yeah, let's get a Snapple. And we go up to the cafe.
This is when Snapple was a big deal.
Upstairs. And for 2 hours, we just sit there talking about our favorite comedians and comedy and shooting the shit, sort of falling in love. And it's like, he doesn't really want to train. And I want to talk comedy,
Yeah.
And before you know it, the fight's coming up in like 3 weeks, and I'm like, I don't know what happens after the fight because I'm the boxing trainer guy. I called in the station a time or two, like I worked a joke in, like I would work, but I didn't want him to think I was the guy who wanted to be a comedian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I didn't want to freak him out. Like, I just want to be a comedian. I want him to know I was a boxing trainer, So the fight ended. The judges for the fight were...
How did Jimmy do?
He lost.
What did you teach him?
I couldn't teach him anything. I couldn't... I tried to do a thing. There's a picture of me and Jimmy getting into the ring in what was called the Bleeda in Reseda. It took place at the Reseda Country Club.
Was he nervous?
Not really, which was weird. He wasn't that concerned about it. Pat O'Brien called it. Adam Sandler was the judge.
Wow.
And if you go to the left, upper left, you see a picture of me with my hat on backwards while Jimmy is wearing my old boxing trunks, leaning against the ropes, and Michael the maintenance man is pummeling him. That's me with my Bodies in Motion hat and T-shirt on. I sent him out for the second round with no mouthpiece. I remember that. I remember, like, the bell rang and the guys were fighting, and at some point I looked down, I was like, what's this extra mouthpiece doing in my hand? Like, was my first thought. My second one was, oh. But, they had the face guard on, which kind of
How long did they fight for?
I think it was like 3 2-minute rounds or 3 3-minute rounds or whatever it was. But the long and the short of it was, if you go to the bottom left corner, you can see like an old picture of me and Jimmy, and I'm dressed up as Mr. Burcham, the woodshop teacher. Jimmy's wearing the glasses.
Yep.
He's in the middle. So we got to the end. He lost the fight, and I was like, well, now what? Like, what could I do?
But you guys created some sort of bond, I'm sure, throughout those weeks.
Yeah,
you guys were boys?
We hit it off immediately.
Yeah.
And he said, like, do you have any tape or you have anything that you've done? And I shot some Eagle Rock, like, public access home improvement thing. And it was totally rough and totally public access and totally whatever. But I said, that's what I got. And he said, I'll look at it. And I gave it to him. And, the genius of Jimmy, he, like, saw something in it. Like, he was like, oh, this guy's good for some reason, even though he's totally raw. So Jimmy got it, and he said, he goes, well, what do you do? Like, what's your thing? And I said, I just shoot the shit, man. I just sit and roll with the punches and add to the conversation.
Can you imagine? You and I would be like, well, good luck with that.
Right. Yeah. So
what do I do with this?
He looks at me and he goes, well, that's what Kevin and Bean do. And I go, yeah, what I would do is like sit in between them and like make them better, And he's like, nah, that's never going to work. You're the boxing coach. You're not coming into the studio and hanging out and cracking wise. And I was like, well, what's your suggestion? And he's like, the only way you're getting on with Kevin and Bean is you got to come up with a character. And I was like, I don't really do voices or characters.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really do stuff.
This is Adam Carolla.
Yeah, right. Any more Grey Poupon? So I go, it's not really my thing, you know? I'm kind of me, you know? And he's like, well, you better make it your thing and figure it out. And that was like on a Friday. And he said, call in Monday. I'll give you the number. I'll give you like the hotline number. I'm not going to tell those guys who you are. Because if they find out you're my boxing coach, they're going to be like, I don't want to talk to the boxing coach guy, or he's doing a character. I mean, think about what that sounds like, right? So he goes, I'm not going to tell them who you are. I'm just going to go, I know a funny guy, you know, he'll do a character, like, trust me. And then he said, they're probably not going to like it. And it'll probably be the last one you do. Like, it's gonna be one and done. Like, he wasn't saying it's gonna be one and done, but you know, the batting average on your stupid character with your boxing coach. And I'll ask him if you can call in next week, and they'll probably go, it wasn't that good.
Yeah.
So I like went, okay, I don't know. I don't have any characters. But I sort of was going to fall back on like my groundlings training. Like, I do know how to develop a character, and I am trained to do this stuff. So I went back, and I was like, you know, I was thinking, okay, you're the gay florist who's going to do the movie reviews, you know, or something. It's like, I was sitting around going, what?
I compare.
So tough.
Yeah, why would I call?
Movie
Your living room, my God.
Fuck.
You know, why would I call in? What would be my motivation for calling a radio station, like, as a character? And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, you have to go with something you know. Like, you have to go with a subject you know about. And I knew carpentry really well and woodworking really well. And I was like, but what's the character, you know? And I thought, I always joked about my shitty junior high shop teachers and what dicks they were, you know, Mr. Hensley and Mr. Saponzi, and how they hated the kids, and they kind of loved wood and wood shop and metal and everything, but they hated the kids, you know, like the surly wood shop teacher, you know. And I was like, oh, that would be good, like the mean wood shop teacher. And then I was thinking to myself, but why would the mean wood shop teacher call Kevin and Bean? Like, what's his motivation for calling? And so I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, I know. Okay. So this guy, Mr. Burcham, the wood shop teacher, he teaches remedial wood at Louis Pasteur Middle School in Monrovia. That's his thing. And he is calling in at 7:15 in the morning. And the reason he's calling in is, while he doesn't like K-Rock or any of this new music bullshit, his kids all listen. They all have the clock alarm set to K-Rock because they're prime demo.
Genius.
They're a bunch of 13-year-olds. They're skaters. You know, they love K-Rock.
Yeah.
So I call in and I go, you know, listen, I don't care about your music. I don't care about your Nervosa and your Smashing Dumplings and all your crap music, you know. You know, I like Sugarloaf and real bands, you know. But all the kids are listening. So give me a second just to kind of use it as an intercom to like speak to the kids. And then I go off on the kids. I'm like, I injured myself in the garage again. I'm not coming in. That Quimby, Mr. Saponzi with the sweater vest, he's going to be teaching my class.
Quimby.
I don't need, look, God, if one of you goddamn kids gets near my drill index, so help me God, I'll stab you when I come back. And leave the Makita poster alone. You will watch, he's got a movie set up, it's blood on the bandsaw. You're going to watch that, and you put your head on the desk and ride out the rest of the period. Do you understand? You don't get up, you don't touch my tools, you don't move around. And then I'd go like, but hold on, there's one kid who's good. You know, that kid's good. And his name was Brad Higginstall. Like, Brad, I've been thinking a lot about the cigar box you're building your grandfather. I was thinking about a butt joint. I know we're talking about a dado or a rabbit joint or maybe a dovetail or a finger joint, but I think let's just go with a rabbit joint. That's a clean. You can set up the dado system on my contractor saw. If any other kids get up, you're in trouble. Brad, listen to me.
That's genius.
And I'd get into all specific shit of how this thing would be built.
That's so good, dude.
About they liked it.
It went well.
Yeah, it went well.
Kevin Bean.
It's
And
so
they're like,
different.
have that guy call in again next week. And I kept calling in, and I kept explaining
Would you and Jimmy
shit.
talk after? Like, what'd you think, Jimmy? He was like,
Yeah,
"This is
yeah.
funny,
I'd
man."
like call Jimmy and go, were they laughing? Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't really, because they'd have the meeting after the show,
Right.
you know, and I'd be like, Jimmy, what'd they think? They thought it was okay. I think I could call in again. Oh yeah, I did the Bircham on I do Bircham on
Crank Yankers?
Crank Yankers.
You created that with Jimmy, right?
Yeah.
How long did you guys run on that?
How we did, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons, and now
long
it's
time.
back.
Yeah, it's
now,
back.
now it's back. With
saw it.
More seasons, but
How happy were you when you called Jimmy again? How did it go? And he went, pretty well, man.
well, at the beginning, it was just like, I think you could call back next week. Like, I was just living
Week to week.
to fight again. Like,
Those
just-
moments when you surprise yourself, when you're desperate. Like I the only time I ever knew I maybe had, you don't know if you're talented. You don't even know if you can do this. And I had an audition for these agents in New York, and you had to bring a monologue. And I was looking at monologues, and I go, I want to write a monologue. I was like, I wonder if I'm allowed to do that.
not bring one in.
No, and I
from-
wrote
from
a monologue
Samuel
as
French.
I wrote a monologue as a New York guy, and I did it. I had no idea if it was going to work. I was so fucking terrified. I was probably like 22, and I did this monologue. It was this New York guy, and they were fucking laughing. And then he goes, where'd that come from? And I go, I wrote it. He goes, you wrote that? I go, yeah. He goes, you're very talented. It was the first time anybody ever said. It was the first time I ever heard that. You know, when you hear that, when something works like that, you're like, maybe I can do this.
But you didn't know it was working, right, Adam? You're just going week. You kind of going just hoping to get.
I didn't know it's radio, so I have no idea what the
Hear them
audience.
laughing.
They were like a little bit, but it wasn't overwhelming. But it was enough. All I needed to do was survive to go to the next round.
Yeah.
You know, but I knew that if the following week I went out there and shit the bed,
It was over.
I knew they'd pull the plug
Yep.
on it. And I knew I had to get, 8 or 10 good ones under my belt before I could turn in a 5,
Yeah.
So I worked really hard at it, and it became like a sensation. And it was crazy. So it's like I'm backstage at the acoustic Christmas at Irvine, whatever, like with Kevin and Bean, 2 months later. And all of a sudden, like, I hear Henry Winkler, like I had like celebrities would hang out backstage, and I hear Henry Winkler going, and who's Mr. Bircham? Where's Mr. Bircham? That guy's a genius. That guy's a genius.
That's
like,
fucking-
And I'm standing back there, like I'm swinging a
But
hammer
for
and
anybody who
teaching
doesn't know,
boxing.
for anybody who's young, Henry
They
Winkler
know.
was Fonzie. I mean,
Right.
Fonzie.
holy shit.
And so I'm like, huh? And I like walk up to him and I go, I'm Mr. Bircham. And he does the two-handed handshake with
Yeah,
me.
it's
a big
Now,
deal.
keep
He's
in
a
mind,
nice man. That's
a big deal.
I'm not even in show business at this point. I'm still working as a boxing coach and a carpenter. He shakes my hand with 2 hands and he goes, nobody does what you do. Nobody can do what you do. And I was like, oh my God.
that's
my
such
mind was
validation.
blown. And then, like in the same concert thing, Duff Kagan or something from Guns N' Roses like comes by and he's like sees me and he goes, "You're Mr. Bircham? Oh man, Axl was way off. Axl thought you were an older dude." I was like, Axl Rose is having
What the
thoughts
fuck?
about me. Like I come from the valley. I'm working construction. Like you and Axl Rose are having a discussion
God
about Mr.
damn.
Bircham. I get signed from William Morris because like the head guy,
After
like
that?
Mark Itkin over there, is a huge
Oh, my
Bircham fan.
God.
I get on the love line. Everyone's this huge Mr. Bircham fan, and it was funny, and that's why.
What a story.
Christ.
So then you and Jimmy just kind of kept this relationship.
Yeah, well, the thing that you know about Jimmy, or you need to know about Jimmy, is I'm the guy's boxing coach, and like 10 minutes later, I'm twice as famous as he is, as Mr. Bircham. Jimmy has been kicking it. He's been knocking around radio for 7 years
my
at this point.
God.
Like he's in Tampa, he's in He's in Seattle. He's getting fired from Palm Springs. I come in, and in 2 months, I'm a huge star in radio, and no one cares about him. And it was like,
fucking God.
and a lot of dudes would have turned on me. Like a lot of dudes at that
such a
point
good guy.
would have went, I'm not going to help you with your next Bertram bit, or I'm not going to edit the bit. You're like, a lot of guys would have went, hey man, good luck.
Yeah.
He just went, I'll help you. I'll do whatever you have to do.
I never met him, but I was on the same plane with him, and I watched how he interacted with fans. He's just such a good fucking guy, man. He just seems like such an amazing guy. I've always liked him. Right now,
Yeah.
watch your tone.
Okay. What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Use some of that boxing you've been doing?
Don't you fucking disrespect.